Hello folks, this is Dr. Jones again. We're going to take a look at how you search in Academic Search Complete. Each of these databases is a little bit different and you may have had some experience with one or more of them, but I want to go through some of the interesting things about each one, and this one is Academic Search Complete. So if you click on that, if you're not already logged into TigerNet or Campbellsville, it's going to ask you to do that, and you just log in. So you click on this, it's going to go hiccup, and then it's going to ask you to log in. And again, if you've used the library before, you've probably had this experience. So to get to this, remember, you need to go to campbellsville.libguides.com/az.php. So keep that address in mind for how to get to this list of databases. And we're going to use several databases in the semester, but we're going to do Academic Search Complete today. So I clicked on Academic Search Complete. It actually took me to this one, but I clicked on Advanced Search because remember, we're going to use our different codes. And so I don't care if you use corporate responsibility, corporate social responsibility, or ethics. I'm going to use ethics, but I'm going to do what I did in the last one, which is to use ethic and then the asterisk, so it will pull up ethic, ethics, ethical, etc. And I'm going to ask it to look for that in subject terms. So any subject that has to do with something about ethics is going to pull it up. And so let's see what this does. Now, again, this one's going to pull up some similar things and many different um, journals than you would have from ABI Inform. But now, before we go to that, because that's going to pull up every possible thing, let's do some searches. Let's click on some things down here that's going to limit it to things that are actually useful. Remember, you need to use full text, and the reason you need to use full text is you cannot answer all of the questions on an article review if you don't have access to the full text of the article. If all you get is a link or an abstract, that's not going to give you the information about methodology, etc., that you need to be able to talk about. We're also going to look at scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. Now, you still will find that a few other things sneak in, but we'll be able to deal with that pretty easily. So you want full text, you want scholarly peer-reviewed. Let's also limit. So I told you anything within the last 5 years, start with January 2015. And since we are currently in May 2020, we'll end it there. So we're going to look for that period of time. Anything since January of 2015 is fine. Then we want to take a look at only articles. We don't want it to be, well, you can just see for yourself. There's television reviews, short stories, reports, recipes, etc. We're not interested in the latest ethical cornbread, although that might be very tasty, but we're going to limit it to that. So articles, you could have periodicals, newspapers, books, primary source, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to worry about that just for the moment, but because by saying article and scholarly review journal, that's going to do a lot of this right here. Now, I will say I don't want anything in Azerbaijani. I do want only English. And so if you take a look at that, we're going to click on English right there. We don't care whether or not it's got a certain number of pages, quick views, charts, etc. And while I could click on PDF full text, there are a lot of articles that come through as HTML full text, and I don't want to lose those. So we're going to use this as search. And let's see what that does for our options. So we have a little over 15,000 articles that are in there, and that is just way, way too many articles. Um, so we need to limit this down just a little bit. Now, we've already done a lot of limitations. You'll notice over here, all of those things. References available is not that important. We could click to academic journals, and I'm going to do that, but that still takes us only about 300 fewer articles. So it's still almost 15,000. And if we went down through these, what you're going to notice is that let's take NAICS industry, that it's got all kinds of stuff that's really not about business ethics. And that's what, the course is about. And so while you could technically say that research and the development in the physical engineering and life sciences, except biotechnology, has got some business aspects to it, and that's the most common one in there, I think we're going to see that if we went up here, how should we teach ethics in industrial organization psychology is not really the kind of article that we're looking for. I actually did look at what this was right here, and it's interesting, but it's a thought piece, and it's not the kind of thing that we're really looking at. So let's do a different limitation. Let's put another subject term in there. So what we're going to ask it to do is not only look for subjects that have ethics in it, we're going to look for subjects that have business in it. And let's limit it down in that way. So we still have all our full-text scholarly published documents, etc. Now we're down to 414 articles. That's a lot less than 15,000 articles. So now we can look at it. So when I did that search earlier, just in practice for this, this is where I came up with the ethics and sustainability during challenging times. I'm going to click on it just so you can see why I'm not actually including it. So if you were to go to this, here's the abstract on it, and down here is the HTML full text. I know this is pulling things through. HTML full text here means you get the article in web form, but there's not a PDF with it. So if we had limited to only articles with PDFs in there, we wouldn't have this one, which is not going to be a great loss. But let me explain. So what this article actually does is talks about business in Malaysia, which is fine, and you could do that. But it's really more of a thought piece, and you could tell that as you go down, even though there's some findings, etc., in there. There's not a lot in the way of references. Now, even worse, I've got another one here. I believe it was this one. Let me see here. Yeah, this was definitely one. So you got to read through these things to make sure of what it is. Just because it pulls up, just because somebody published it doesn't make it actually something worthwhile, because a fair number of articles will get through. Now, I have nothing against people who are not native English speakers, okay? But typically, when you look at things, you can tell a little bit, just reading through the article quickly, you can tell a little bit about how good that article is going to be for you. So this one has an abstract. Here's the abstract right here. That's the entire abstract. This article discusses various aspects of professional and corporate ethics, analysis of corporate misconduct, important issues addressed in the literature, discussion of the relationship of authors to corporate ethics. Okay, possibility. A little bit of wording difficulties, but maybe this will be okay. So if we drop down, we start seeing things like this. So they're going to talk a little bit about, in this introduction, about blah, blah, blah. And you get to this sentence right here. Business ethics, corporate ethics. Are these terms synonymous? Well, at least business ethics and business ethics are synonymous. So I think they didn't do a good job of editing through here. Theoretical background instead of theoretical background. So, uh, there are some things that call into questions. Um, I would probably at this point say, I'm not sure that this is one that I really want to go into. So they have theoretical background, main part, discussions, conclusion, and their references here. This is a 2020 article. Okay, so this is an article that was published in this year. Take a look at what their references are. 2001, 2005, 2001, 1987, 1995, 1988, and 2011. That's the latest article that they put into their references. That tells me something. If almost everything that they cite is something from an encyclopedic dictionary, ethics of business communication manual, okay, dictionary of foreign words, somebody's 2001, there's not even complete references here. I couldn't go back. That's one thing that's important is you need to be able to take this reference and go find that exact article and not have to wonder how to get to it. So that's not a good article at all. What I did find it interesting is this one right here. Does ethics really matter to the sustainability of new ventures, the relationship between entrepreneurial ethics, firm visibility, and entrepreneurial performance? So the article is looking at, is ethics important to whether or not a new venture is sustainable? In other words, is it going to live a long time? We're not talking about sustainability as in environmental sustainability. We're talking about corporate sustainability. Can they stay in business? And so they find a relationship, or they're looking for a relationship between the ethics of the entrepreneur, the visibility of the firm, marketing, presence out there, and the performance of the business. And so if you go down to the abstract, it talks about it. This paper aims to explore whether entrepreneurial ethics can improve performance in new ventures, blah, blah, blah. From different regions of China, 296 valid questionnaires are obtained and analyzed. So they did a survey of, I guess, 296. We'd have to look farther on down. 296 different businesses, probably got in touch with the owners or a manager. What are their findings? What are the results? We find that entrepreneurial ethics is adverse to the survival of new ventures. In other words, their sustainability and their ethics have an inverse relationship. The more ethical, the least that it's going to survive, and the least ethical and the longest they're going to survive, but conductive to their sustainable growth of new ventures. I don't exactly understand how, conducive to it, how ethics is terrible for survival, long-term survival, but conducive to growth. So maybe ethics help you out in the short run, but in the long run, you need to be unethical. I don't know, but it was pretty interesting just to see that. That intrigues me enough that somebody found that I'd want to go read that. And so I would read through this just like I did with ABI Inform. Okay, folks, that's one way to start looking for it. Remember, look for a good article. Don't choose the same article that I had here in this video. Search for something that's interesting to you, that still has something about ethics or corporate social responsibility in a business field, even if it's a more specific business field that you want to be into, and use that for your article review. It's been good to talk to you. See you next video. Bye-bye.